War, what is, what? I don't know what this is saying though. What does the U.S. wars on Iran mean for Canada? I think I got the headline wrong there. First strike takes out the leadership. Carney out in support of the U.S. and Israel. Operation Epic Fury. Canada not informed and not asked for help. Canadian media once again shows its true colors. The woes of the Canadian military linked to the Liberal Party. World reaction to the war with Iran. Carney in India looking to make deals. Bombshell story on Indian terrorists operating in Canada. Energy experts completely baffled. They're just like, how? So must be watching our show. Jolie gets it all wrong on the auto sector in Canada. She should watch our show. Climate clowns have destroyed Canadian prosperity. Again, NDP policy makes BC energy weak. Crime in Canada, result of weak, woke, liberal policies. Fraud, waste, and abuse, and we got a lot of it to show you today. Canadian media on its knees and CBC gorging while trust falls fast for them. Liberals refuse accountability. Gold on a rocket ship. Debt is not only a federal problem, the provinces are all in hock too. BC Conservative leadership has come down to 9. All that and a lot more on the Really Big Show. Ready to get into it?
Welcome to the Really Big Show with Jim Check and Ian Burns.
Look at that big epic new intro there. We got to fix some of the images at the end though. But hey, welcome to the Really Big Show. I'm Jim Check, and with me, Ian Burns, our managing editor out there in the nation capitals. Looked like spring here in the Okanagan. I don't know what it looks like out there for you, but it is a beautiful weekend and a beautiful day here out here in the Okanagan here. We're moving around. What's going on there? Who knows, eh? Who knows? Lots of nice feedback again. We really appreciate all the feedback that we get on this show, and keep it coming. Keep the feedback coming. You can see some of that feedback there, and the big one this weekend, Donald J. Trump. We're going to kick it off with his announcement here first of all.
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. For 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted death to America and waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder, targeting the United States, our troops, and the innocent people in many, many countries. Among the regime's very first acts was to back a violent takeover of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, holding dozens of American hostages for 444 days. In 1983, Iran's proxies carried out the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut that killed 241 American military personnel. In 2000, they knew and were probably involved with the attack on the USS Cole. Many died. Iranian forces killed and maimed hundreds of Americans.
You can go watch that full news conference there, or that when he did that announcement there, if you want. We're moving around here as we're trying out new things here on the Really Big Show. Thank you for your patience there. Again, our budget a lot smaller than the CBC's $1.6 billion that they take from you, plus another $400 million that they have. And then there was an update. Actually, we're going to play this next video here first, and then we'll have some comment here. This is out of Fox after their first strike there on Operation Epic Fury. And it seemed like their first target was the leadership of the Iranian government here. Listen to this here from Fox. That's the wrong one? This one here.
Yeah, Sandra, we just got this in literally 2 minutes ago, but Fox News can confirm that Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead following Israeli strikes against his compound and location earlier today. A senior Israeli official confirming this news. Earlier tonight, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu describing the strikes not only against the supreme leader, but against much of the Iranian leadership.
So that was their first strike. I watched the press briefing this morning from Hegseth and the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and I think they had 100 planes in the air. They used a combination of decoys and a whole bunch of radar things and a bunch of tech, and got in there and basically wiped out many of the leadership there in an early morning. And then I think there was 3 planes shot down, 3 American planes shot down by Kuwaitis this morning in friendly fire, because there's so much going on in that area there. But the pilots weren't affected. They jumped out of the plane. And also, I think there's 3 American soldiers now that have died in an attack on the bases. 4 now. 4 American soldiers that have died in an attack on one of the bases there in, I think it's Bahrain.
Donald Trump's made a media appearance. I think he's still live now, actually. And he mentioned those deaths, but one of those cases where he really, really doesn't help himself, where he was talking about these people who've died, and then in the next breath, he was talking about curtains and the ballroom, saying, we're going to save a lot of money on these curtains. Just vulgarity of such an order that it's impossible to process it with a normal human mind. I think you need a data center of your own to process just how vulgar and contemptuous that is of those people who died because of a decision that he made. Just remarkable. But then, that's kind of him in a nutshell, really, isn't it? But he's also said more US service people expected to die. And that's the most, from my perspective anyway, I mean, looking at this through American lens, that's the most important thing by far. Americans, by and large, don't care even a tiny bit about what happens in Iran. They don't care about ayatollahs. They couldn't care less about that kind of thing. But they do care if Americans are dying for what they see as mysterious reasons. So keep an eye on that.
Can you put up that map, that next one there, just to show people where this is? And you can see Iran there, when it's bordered by Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, Syria, and then Israel is not shown on this map, but Israel is a small little country there on the coastline there, right next to Syria there. And then also that if you look at the south of the Iran there, that little strip there, the Strait of Hormuz is where the oil goes through, and that oil goes through for both Saudi Arabia and Iraq and for Iran, right? And I think one super tanker has been hit by the Iranians already. So you're going to see that. We're going to talk about it later. You're going to see the price of oil has spiked around the world as energy becomes all that much more important, because a lot of this oil for Iran goes to China. So obviously China will now turn to Russia for oil.
Iran is not a significant player in world oil, but obviously the Persian Gulf is very significant.
Yeah.
That's where, and they source quite a lot of their oil from Saudi, UAE, and so on. They're kind of maxed out on Russian oil, really, the Chinese. They talk about extra pipelines and things, but who knows? So yeah, it is a blow to China, undoubtedly. But Iran, as an oil exporter, is no longer particularly significant because, as happened in Venezuela, they've degraded their own production to such an extent, degraded their relationships with the world, that they're just not that big of a deal anymore. But they could be. I mean, if they came back online, just like Venezuela, they could be a very big player.
Can you play that clip just showing you the size of Iran compared to many other parts of the world? Just let it run here. We can talk over it, though, because Iran is a lot larger than Iraq and a lot more powerful than Iraq and had a lot more weaponry. But the Americans already have air superiority. I don't even know if they got much off the ground I mean, that is what they did in Iraq too. I think they took out their Air Force in a matter of minutes. And I think one of the things that they talk about here is that it doesn't sound like they want to put any boots on the ground. That was a mistake they made in Iraq, and they said that they won't repeat it. But
Yeah.
Trump has managed to get, I guess, somebody cracked the state television broadcaster there in Iran, and the message did play that this is your time. This is your time to seize back your country. Because there are a lot of Iranians were asking for Trump to help. And we see those protests all around the world where they were asking the Americans to go in there and bomb Iran. Thank you to Dog's Body for that contribution to independent media. Appreciate that. But I mean, Iran has a lot more money invested in their military, and they have a lot more ballistic missiles, and they're working on nuclear capabilities, and they had a lot bigger Air Force. But again, American superiority has been demonstrated once again. Like I said, I don't think they got much off the ground. The only aircraft that was shot down so far has been shot down by friendly fire.
But you said it, they're not putting ground troops. I mean, it's very difficult to imagine what they expect to actually achieve, other than killing senior officials, degrading infrastructure, destroying weapons and things like that. There's only so much you can do from the air. And they've said many, many times they're not going to make this a land occupation or a land operation of any kind. What can you really do from the air? You know, you can blow people up, but it just seemed a little bit glib when Donald Trump said to the Iranian people to rise up. I mean, they've been under the boot of the Ayatollahs now for nearly 50 years. All of civil society, or much of civil society, has just been chopped down, incinerated by these people. It's hard to see where an alternative is going to emerge from, you know. It seems a little bit sort of hopeful, let's say. And if they're going to keep it to an air war, I just don't know. I mean, people talking about regime change and things like that. I'm not seeing any evidence of that right now. What I'm seeing so far is a much more comprehensive version of the previous attack, Midnight Hammer. But I'm not seeing anything in the way of a revolution in Iran or regime change. And I don't know how that would be possible unless there's some kind of mad, organic uprising. But even then, uprisings in Iran don't tend to be very organized. They're just kind of people in despair, you know, who are just so sick of their lives. But it's not like Venezuela, for example, where there was like an alternative party ready to take over, though obviously Trump didn't let that happen. But still, Iran isn't like that.
We have some reaction here. Here's CBC talking to about Iran-U.S. missile strike. Let's listen to what they have to say here.
You know, there is some questions and criticism about this move by the U.S. and Israel, particularly from a political perspective in the U.S. because of the way President Trump did it without Congress, and even perhaps not fully explaining to Americans why he chose this moment. What do you make of that, and what would you say to people who are raising some of those questions?
Look, from a legal and sort of process point of view, I can certainly understand that argument. You know, he didn't go to Congress to get authorization as the Constitution of the United States requires, so on and so forth. He didn't make his case to the American people. I understand all those, and I am usually someone that's quite vocal in speaking out against Donald Trump and what he does. But in this case, I think there was really a bigger principle at stake, which was, you know, a people had risen up, and the President of the United States had offered them help. He had said, you know, help is on the way. And he really needed to carry that out. So this is a regime that has posed a great danger to the United States. It has killed many Americans, and it poses an existential danger to a critical U.S. ally, Israel. So already, you know, American interests were at stake, and the reputation of the American president was at stake. Once he makes that promise, he really needs to make good on it. Otherwise, he will basically be as Obama was when he drew a red line in Syria and didn't enforce it.
What you saw the statement from the Canadian Prime Minister, from Prime Minister Carney. What role, if any, does Canada play here, or what did you make of the statement?
I was very pleased with the statement. This is a statement that I couldn't have imagined, for example, Justin Trudeau making. So I think it was a welcome development. The fact that Canada stands with the United States in this action, because I think this was the right step for the United States to take. I think Canada has an important role to play by virtue of the fact that it is home to a very large Iranian diaspora. And it's also been a country where a lot of Iranian regime officials have come to. They've brought their families here. They've parked their money here and invested in this country. So I think Canada has an important role to play in ensuring that Canada doesn't become a safe haven. It doesn't become kind of like Argentina after the Second World War, where a lot of Nazis escaped. I think we have to be very vigilant as this regime crumbles. It cannot become the place that Iranian regime officials escape to. If they come here, they have to, face justice under international law.
Kaveh Shahruz, really good to get your...
He makes an important point, and I've said this one over and over again. There's a lot of outcry for help from the Americans to help the Iranian people. Like tens of thousands were killed in the streets by the Iranian regime, protesters. And he said help was on the way. And many people can remember, and I think I posted on my LinkedIn, including in the Hungarian Revolution that my parents were involved in, that they said help was on the way. And of course, help was never coming. And lots of times, and Trump always talks about being a man of his word in that. So he said help was on the way. And, it looked like to many Iranians they were losing hope that help would not come.
Although I think the idea that this is a decision being made because of the Iranian people, I would say that's laughable. That would not be even in the top 20 reasons why the Americans have done this. But if it helps their PR, then they're going to lean into that for sure.
Here's some CBS reaction to this as well, especially on the reaction to the Iran supreme leader being killed.
The Iranian people, what are you hearing from them tonight? We know they're celebrating. What's the feeling?
It's an incredible dissonance that they had to choose war over a regime, but they were willing to do it. Thank you, Donald Trump. Thank you, Benjamin Netanyahu. Thank you, America. It's not death to America after they killed the leader. The Americans and the Israelis did it. It's not death to Israel and death to America. It's thank you. It's a new day dawning, but very early days, very, very early days. So we'll have to see what comes. But
and again, this is very early on. I mean, it's, if you look at it from an American perspective, huge success right out of the gate, right? Like the first strike taking out the Iranian leadership. I mean, in most wars, if you can take out the leadership, you go back through history, it usually is a turning point. But very early days. And don't forget, some of these wars have dragged out. Well, we can look at the one that's currently going on, the Russia-Ukraine thing, which Russia apparently should have taken weeks to conquer Ukraine. Iraq, what was that? Iraq, 20 years? Oh, Iraq? Afghanistan, 20 years? Afghanistan? So
Iraq wasn't 20 years, no.
10 years?
It was more like, it was about 7 or 8 years, I think, wasn't it? All in. Although then there was the ISIS aftermath, the epilogue.
I mean, it was a mess forever.
I just have to say, a couple of people saying that I have TDS. Can you not think of a better argument? TDS. You can't just say it, TDS, every time Donald Trump makes a mistake and somebody points that out, TDS, that's supposed to be for people who are just completely deranged, like the sort of CNN commentators who can never acknowledge that Donald Trump is capable of doing anything good. It's just everything is bad. That's TDS. If you say that somebody making a critique or even just pointing out possible holes in a plan like this, that's already led to the deaths of 4 Americans. If you're just going to say that's TDS, I mean, you're not going to be taken seriously, I'm afraid. Not here and not anywhere.
Here's Mark Carney's reaction, though, and it did surprise many in Canada, and it did surprise many in his party as well, and did surprise the media.
In the Middle East remains clear. The Islamic Republic of Iran is the principal source of instability and terror throughout the Middle East. It has one of the world's worst human rights records and must never be allowed to obtain or develop nuclear weapons. Canada and our international partners have called consistently upon the Iranian regime to end its nuclear program, including at the G7 summit in Kananaskis and with the United Nations reimposition of sanctions this past September. We've sanctioned over 250 Iranian entities. We've listed the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist entity. And despite numerous diplomatic efforts, Iran has neither fully dismantled its nuclear program, halted all enrichment activities, nor ended its support for regional terrorist proxy groups. Canada stands with the Iranian people in their long and courageous struggle against this oppressive regime, and we reaffirm Israel's right to defend itself. Canada supports the United States acting to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon and to prevent its regime from further threatening international peace and security. And the Canadian government urges the protection of all civilians in this conflict going forward.
Justin Trudeau never would have made that speech for sure. Neither would many.
But also, you've got Mark Carney there, acting as if he's important.
Well,
you know, he's basically an audience member in the stadium, standing up, saying, "I approve of this baseball player," or something like that. Okay, who cares what you think?
Well, here's proof of what
You're not important. But from our perspective, I would say it is quite positive, actually, from a purely Canadian perspective. From an American or from a global perspective, it's just like, who gives a toss? It's completely irrelevant. You know, clear notification. I do not care. But from our perspective, since he is our Lord and Master, it is actually quite positive, because he's basically saying, yeah, okay, America, good on you, but we're not going to get involved. We're not going to spill blood or spend treasure on this. We're just going to reap the benefits. If there is a successful regime change in Iran, we'll just reap the benefits. Thank you very much. But we're not getting involved. And that is what so many countries have done throughout the last 20, 30 or more years. They've reaped the benefits, but they haven't put anything forward. I mean, an example, and I'm not picking on my ancestral land of Ireland here, but think of Ireland. There's one example. Think of that country and all the kind of benefits that it's brought to itself because of the actions of other people, like the death of British soldiers, the death of American soldiers, the creation of this world order that makes Ireland so rich. But it's never done anything. It just sits there and free rides. It's great. And, you know, if you're being cynical, you can look at that and say, yeah, let's have a bit of that. If we can have that, if we can free ride, you know, that it's not moral, it's extremely unprincipled, but I don't know. That's Canada first. If you're interested in Canada firstism, that's kind of what it looks like, I think.
They did do an interview with a former military expert here in Canada, and you know, they asked him, "Well, would Canada send military?" And he said, "What military could we send? What possibly could we send? We have 40 jets that are actually operational, and they would be a hindrance on the battlefield. They're that old. They would actually get in the way. We have nothing to send," and we're going to show you some of that later. And again, just to your point here, Zanita Nand letting you know that Canada wasn't notified. We're just irrelevant in this theater.
First and foremost, Canada wasn't involved. We weren't notified, and we do not have an intention to be involved in any military strikes or operation. We share the concern of the United States and many other countries relating to Iranian nuclear proliferation. And in fact, we've called on Iran for a number of years to cease proliferating in terms of its nuclear capacity. That's why we have not had diplomatic relations with Iran for 15 years. At the same time, we prefer a diplomatic solution. This is why I have spent the last 2 days speaking with my counterparts across the Middle East and in the Gulf states, from Jordan to Qatar, to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, to UAE, and all of my G7 counterparts stressing that Canada believes in a diplomatic and peaceful.
That's good.
So let's get straight to the most interesting part of that, shall we? Right away, let's cut to the heart of it. I think those were rose-ringed parakeets that
That's
you
what I
could
was
hear,
gonna
like
say.
the chirps over and again. But you also heard a wood pigeon. And isn't that interesting that wood pigeons live in India? And as she was speaking, my eyes glazed over and I just Googled wood pigeons range. And indeed, wood pigeons are in India. I didn't know that. But that's so fascinating. I mean, we've learned something there. I don't know what that woman was talking about or who that woman is, but some really interesting avian life there in India.
What I was going to say is even the birds don't believe her because they're just like chirp, 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 chirp. They're just like,
Well,
chirp,
even
chirp,
the
chirp,
birds
chirp,
don't
chirp.
respect her. More like they're just like, who's this idiot? Has anyone seen any berries?
Like it's just.
She had
How
nothing
many
to
times?
say.
How many
She didn't
times did
know
we
anything.
say Mexico? We just saw the thing in Mexico. Canada wasn't informed. We just saw this. Canada has become a risk. Canada has become a risk on the world theater. Canada has become a risk.
Also, not informed, like no information, no heads up, not involved, not, they're not even in the WhatsApp group. They're not even in the email chain. It's like, P.S. we've just done. Nobody cares. And that's different from what I was saying where Mark Carney is maybe playing it quite smart. This is different. This is just like contempt for Canada. But also, in a way, the appointment of this woman as Foreign Affairs Minister is contempt for the Canadian people because she has absolutely no idea what she's doing. No clue. She doesn't know anything about the world. She gives the impression she doesn't know anything about Canada. I mean, that is an insult. I've never heard her speak about foreign affairs and look like she knows what she's talking about. It's, if you're a Canadian citizen and you see that and you don't feel insulted, then, you need to have a think about it. You need to think about what that says about Mark Carney's respect for you, for this country, that he would appoint somebody so incapable and so incurious and lacking knowledge who can't even speak. She can't even speak clearly and fluently. It's the same with Melanie Jolie, obviously, which we pointed out 100 times, and some other people, Gregor Robertson. But, there has to come a point, I think, where you kind of like put your hand up and say, no, thank you. I'm insulted by this. I want somebody in this job that knows what they're doing.
She definitely, from my perspective, has never put Canada first. I've seen many of her speeches. I mean, I watched most of her stuff. She likely learns more about what's going on in the world by watching this show than she does from other diplomats reaching out to her. Again, her counterpart, Marco Rubio, not even in the same, if Rubio is playing in the MLB, I'm not even sure she's playing in Little League. It's just a complete mismatch, and that's why they don't trust her. And she does not put Canada first. That speech at the UN, too, this is not a Canada first cabinet, for that matter. I mean, I'm surprised with Carney's speech there. I was actually, pleasantly surprised. Kudos to him for actually picking the right side.
At no cost as well.
Yeah.
That's the real sort of Canada first thing, isn't it? No cost.
Well, we have no money.
Whereas in the past, we've seen things. Yeah, well, there's that.
We have no money, no
We
military.
can't even do it. But you look at the past, like
trust.
Afghanistan, for example. Afghanistan was a bit different because obviously that was Article 5 was involved. So we kind of had to do that. Canada had to do that, realistically. But still, what did Canada get out of that? That was just like, that was such a miserable, pointless affair, wasn't it? I mean, maybe a better comparison would be something like the British who chose to go into Iraq. And it was all about, the Americans are going to love us for this. The American president now is insulting Britain and the British Prime Minister right now on his social media account because they weren't allowed to use British territory right off the bat. They can now, apparently, but they initially weren't. You look at these things, you just think, what was the point? Hundreds of soldiers dead. God knows how much money wasted. So, I don't know. I can't help but think that shows a bit of wisdom. But what you say is also right. Even if there was a desire to get involved, Canada can't offer anything anyway because it doesn't have a military.
No money, No military and no trust. All done under the leadership of the past 11 years. All done. And we're going to show you some of that. We're going to bring you some of the receipts. But Anita Anand did support sending tons of money to Gaza. And here's a story from Juno News saying a lot of that money, and we said this a while ago, ended up in the hands of the terrorist group Hamas. Again, the amount of money that we send overseas with zero to no oversight, we don't know where it's going, what it's doing, and we don't even have any money to send. This is what she was always pushing for. More money, more money, more money. And same thing for Ukraine. Tens of billions of dollars going to Ukraine. I think it's like 22.5 billion now. Now under the oversight of Chrystia Freeland with no oversight from Canada at all.
When you send money to one-party states, you know, authoritarian countries that are ruled by authoritarian regimes, I mean, you don't have to commission a massive study on it. Some of that money will end up in the hands of the rulers. That's always happened. It's obvious why it happens, and it always will happen. So that, you know, but try if you can get the time machine out and have a look at what the atmosphere was like then. There was so much pressure to send money to Gaza and bring Gazan refugees to Canada and things like that. There wasn't really much space for a counter argument, was there?
None.
Because there was
You
a kind
allowed.
of moral hysteria at that time.
You weren't allowed. And here's
now
some...
in the hangover, in the aftermath, we look at it and we say, oh yeah, maybe that was a little bit stupid. Oh well, let's just do it again in a few months' time with the next crisis.
And here's some of the receipts. Mark Carney and the Liberals promised to spend money in the military, promised to bring it up to the 2% NATO target, and they didn't. McGuinty said they fell billions short of the promised spending on military preparedness that was supposed to be equivalent to 2% of GDP in 2025. But they promised to try better this year. Have we heard that before? Have we heard these promises before? They promised to do better this year. They promised to spend it in 2025. Stats Canada on Friday confirmed GDP last year was 2.5 trillion, leaving a 2% NATO target of 50 billion in spending. They're supposed to send 50 billion according to that NATO their GDP. What did we spend? You ready for the number? You want to just take a stab? Anybody want to take a stab? We're supposed to spend 50 billion on defense. We spend 45 billion.
And that isn't even the target, by the way. 2% isn't the target anymore.
No,
it's 5, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 5.
But this happens all the time. We're going to talk. I think we're going to talk about the Gripen fighter and the F-35 later.
Yeah.
How long have they been dragging their feet on that? You know, you say that Donald Trump says he's going to do something and he does it. On this occasion, yeah, you could make that argument for sure. When it comes to the Liberal Party, there is no promise they've ever made that they haven't broken, as far as I'm aware. Except I promised to the CBC to give them extra money. They drag their heels on absolutely everything, and they're not scrutinized about it. The fighter jet thing, the press used to ask them about that quite regularly. I think now they've just got so sick. They're so demoralized. They're so sick of asking that they've just stopped asking about it. And the Liberals just continue to not do anything about it. It's, you know, it's actually weird. It's extraordinary and unusual, the way that they say they're going to do things and then just don't make a decision or just don't do it.
They ordered these F-35s. Harper ordered them way back, way back, 2015. Prior to 2015, they were ordered. Justin Trudeau came in and said we weren't going to go forward with it because it cost too much money. And then they said they were, I think in 2023, he finally came around. How long was that? Like almost 10 years, 8 years. They finally came around and said they're going to buy the F-35s. Then more hand-wringing. And then all of a sudden the Trump thing showed up in 2025. And then nobody wanted to buy the F-35s. The media ran a campaign against the F-35s to buy the Gripens. And now they're running a story saying the Department of Defense ran a biased analysis of the fighter jets, according to a report from Sweden. Of course, the Swedes would say that. The result being the Gripen being unfairly dismissed. You know, the Swedes say our jets are better. Like, imagine that. I think there's 2 battle tests right now that have happened in the last 3-4 months. Venezuela and Iran, led by F-35s. They got in there. Those F-35s got in there and hit the leadership. Like, that's supposed to be the most fortified thing you can find. I think the science is in on the F-35s. They're stealth.
Well, Israel announced, the IDF announced yesterday that they have fully established air superiority over the skies of Iran.
That's what I'm saying.
I think they already had, but they've done that with F-35s. So yeah, and so has obviously the US.
The science.
But yeah,
is
in terms
decided.
of actual, getting the business done, we can see it before our eyes that it works.
But the Canadian media is running these Gripen stories still from a study from Sweden that makes the Gripen. The Gripen's not a stealth fighter. Maybe they should fly some over and see what happens.
This goes to the heart of the Liberal Party or the federal government. The two just the same thing, really, aren't they, lately? But it goes to the heart of their, mistakes that they're making, I think, when it comes to military procurement. They're just looking at it purely from a political perspective, really. Or they would say economic. They're looking at it with jobs, trade relationships, leverage. That's not how, if you actually want a military with the intention of using it, that's not how you should look at procurement, obviously.
And I'm not sure if somebody's saying there was 3 shot down in Iraq. The 3 shot down weren't F-35s, by the way. They were not.
Well, some F-15s were knocked out, weren't they? From the 1970s.
Yeah, they were old jets. But here's your friend Keir there. We're not going to play it. No, we're not going to play it. It's just, like Keir Starmer there, definitely waffly at first. He came out in support of what they're doing, but then wouldn't give access to the bases, and then just in pure Keir Starmer, wiffly waffly, wiffly waffly, wiffly waffly, wiffly waffly. I think what he's trying to do is not stir up a large Islamic population in Britain. I think that's what he's worried about. Well, quietly condoning it, but sounding like they don't condone it. I think that's might be what he's worried about.
It's more complex than that. That's certainly part of it. But you have to remember that the population of the Muslim population of Britain is mostly Sunni Muslim, whereas Shia is whereas Iran is the great Shia powerhouse. They often actually are quite pleased to see Iran suffer. So I think it's a bit more complicated than that. But what I would say is you have to remember who Keir Starmer is. He's somebody that got to the top of the legal profession in England. And he is absolutely obsessed with the law. He actually believes in that fairy tale that we teach children called international law. He actually thinks that that's real and that's a material fact on this earth. And that's what Trump said, that Keir was really freaking out about the legal implications. Possibly a hint for anyone out there of the problems that can be associated with having a government full of lawyers who have, in the case of Keir Starmer, have no moral sense whatsoever. They just know what's written on paper and whether it's legal to do it or not, even if it's, like I say, a fabrication like international law. So I'd say that's kind of what boils down to, but it's also just it's similar to Canada. It's like the British military is not in a very good state. I don't think that they could really pull something like this off. Even to do the sort of junior role, I don't think they could do it.
So we're in the process of buying F-35s. We're in the process. I mean, they have bought some parts and stuff, but they have not like finalized or came out and said that we're doing it. You know what I mean? It's still weefly waffly on it, but I mean, it's pretty much a done deal. They've set up a whole bunch of infrastructure and that. But why don't they just come out and say it? Do you know what I mean? Because they're scared of riling up their American-hating base. That's what it is, and it is just crazy. And the sad thing about the UK is they stood shoulder to shoulder with the Americans on almost everything. And here's Keir. I'm surprised he made it. I thought he wouldn't make February 28th, but here he is, March 2nd, still curing it up. Still curing it up. And where else?
For sure.
Where else do we know of a lawyer that is running a province or a country into the ground? Where else would that be? We might get to it later here. Just stick around, maybe.
And it might have the word British in it, just like that, just like this country.
Just in case you want to guess and take a stab at which province of BC has a lawyer heading it and has headed it down the road of. We're going to show you later. But
thank you to Diana there. She just pitched in. And also John Gotti sending the proceeds of crime to Now Media. Appreciate that.
We really do appreciate it. Guess, and we've got a real big surprise for everybody too. Ian and I are doing this show, the really big show, and then we didn't get the food professor on during the show, but he's going to come back at noon. So Ian and I will be back at noon PST with none other than the food professor in Canada, who is definitely probably doing more media or more holding the government to account than the government-funded media. And Saudi Arabia coming out now saying they're supporting the military response in Iran. A lot of the countries that Trump has signed to the Abraham Accords have come out in support of this. So that is one of the biggest game changers in the area. Whereas before any action would have been, they would have felt a lot of heat from those other countries. And now it seems like it's a different world with the Abraham Accords and that. I don't think we need to play that. That's okay.
Well, bear in mind, Saudi Arabia, the great Middle Eastern Cold War of the last, God knows how long, 10 or 20 years, has been between Saudi Arabia and Iran. But they had started to warm up to each other a little bit in the last sort of year or two. But maybe that, after all, that was just a kind of elaborate dance by the Saudis to keep America on side. But the preliminary reports, like the first reports that I've read anyway out of the US and the New York Times and other, I think the Wall Street Journal, they've said that Saudi was one of the main lobbyists. They were desperate for this to happen, which is a bit of a change of tune, really.
I think they're worried about
on
nuclear weapons. They're worried about if Iran did secure a nuclear weapon, then they said they would have to get a nuclear weapon and it would just increase everything. I mean, that is, like most nations in the world recognize that Iran is a terrorist state and most of the terrorism comes from that country. So that's why. I think it's 183
Well, the Saudis, they fund their fair share, obviously, as people familiar with the September 11th attacks. Remember those? Saudi Arabia was implicated in that and plenty else. But I mean, the difference is that the Saudis are willing to work with America. The Iranians aren't. And they're on the other side. This is what John Gotti was asking. He was asking, like, are there any sort of ulterior motives, secret motives here? I mean, many, but definitely the real big boy, the main Cold War, which was between China and the US. It's very important to knock Iran out of that, to get it out of the CRINC alliance, China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. Especially when Venezuela's just been slapped down. They're running out of, vassals, I suppose. Or just the Chinese are running out of countries that serve them. They're starting to have just North Korea and Russia. That's what it looks like. And Nicaragua, weirdly, but they're not really up to much.
And we said energy is everything. And the last two American operations have a lot to do with energy. I mean, the Iraq War had to do with energy. It's linked to energy, and definitely China is energy starved. Energy is their biggest weakness. And then we got to have Keir, a little bit of Keir, because you know what? Yeah, you can do such a great impersonation of Keir. Do you want to do his press conference for him, or should we play this clip? Let's listen to Keir. You have to get super stuffy. You have to talk from way back in your throat, I think, if you want to do Keir Starmer here. Let's go, Keir.
A range of defensive capabilities in the region. which we've recently strengthened. Our forces are active, and British planes are in the sky today as part of coordinated regional defensive operations to protect our people, our interests, and our allies, as Britain has done before, in line with international law. We've stepped up protections for British bases and personnel to their highest level.
That's good.
I'm scared. They think Xi Jinping's looking at that. He's like, Kia. I mean, look, there's a reason that he's the least popular prime minister in the history of Britain, basically. I'm sure he's less popular than like Oliver Cromwell. He's probably less popular than King John. I would say King John probably had more fans as a proportion of the population.
You have to wonder what the NDP and many of these people, like the Liberals, even Democrats, coming out in support of Nicolas Maduro, Iran, Cuban dictators. And here's Don Davies. New Democrats believes in Canada that respects the United Nations principles we uphold. This is after Antonio Guterres says he condemns the operations. The UN has done almost nothing in the world to secure peace. And how long? They become a fundraiser, basically. A fundraiser to funnel money for certain climate action groups, NGOs. But what have they done in the terms of world peace? And New Democrats, do they support the people or do they support corrupt dictatorships? What actually is the New Democrats supporting here?
I was having a conversation about that just yesterday. Like, who's their base now? Who's their constituency? The union, like workers, people that work in manufacturing, the unions and that, they've basically all just gone to the Conservatives now. The kind of white-collar lefties are either Liberal or Green. Climate activists, Green, obviously. Why would you waste your time with the NDP? Like, who do they have left? I'm not really seeing it. Like, I struggle to think who's like in their sort of constituency, who's their core right now. I know they're popular in the territories, aren't they?
But do they
like you can win an election there?
The NDP used to stand for the people. Again, I said this a few times. My dad was big in the NDP, and it was when it stood for the people and unions. But how can you say it's for the people if you want to reinstall Nicolas Maduro, put him back there, and continue on his path? If you want to support the Ayatollah, and you want to support a Cuban communist government that suppressed its people, who suffers in all these things? It's the people at the bottom. The people, the elitists, do really well. So the 1% does extremely well while the population is crushed. They killed basically, the estimates are 30 to 40,000 protesters in Iran just recently. And this is the NDP wants that back, support a legal process. What has the UN done in a legal process to stop any of these atrocities in the world? What have they done? Anything? Anybody? Anything?
They're just like they're just out of date, aren't they? They might as well be riding around on a penny farthing with a top hat, and a monocle.
They actually appointed.
You're not part of this time that we're in. These people belong in the previous, not even the previous century, the one before that. They're just so out of date. They just have no idea. And I include Guterres in that, who is absolutely hopeless. I don't think he knows what year it is.
They're absolute elitists. And they appointed an Iranian lady there to look after women's rights in the world. And look what they do to women in it. Like, who can say, this is a model for the world? This is what we want for the world. Like, it's a complete joke, a complete farce. And Don Davies, I mean, your party is so irrelevant. And yet, I don't even understand how you wake up in the morning and say these things. Like how you can look in the mirror and say this party, Jack Layton made it a very proud party. Jagmeet Singh and yourselves, I mean, just like some of this stuff, like it's just, and are the people that you're speaking to so far gone on TDS, they don't even care what you say as long as it's TDS? Is that what it is? He's irrelevant. The UN and Antonio Guterres. And then this is from Sana. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing her. Sana Abrahami. She's on a lot of media outlets in the U.S. And this is the Mayor Zohran Mandami there with his statement again. It's just like it's so insensitive to people that have to live under these authoritarian governments, and these are the people that say they speak for the people. I don't understand how you say you speak for the people, that you're completely blind to the atrocities committed on the people. Seems odd.
There's a difference between fair-minded criticism of this policy, this bit of foreign policy by the Trump administration, and then just rank anti-Americanism. And this Mamdani creature gives me the impression that he's in the latter category. I think, like so many people, I mean, Noam Chomsky is like this is the archetype, really, and he's the most intelligent of all of them. Where it's like something happens involving America or the West, and you just know what side Noam Chomsky is going to be on because he hates the West, he hates America, but he's exceedingly articulate and intelligent and knows how to kind of filter that through a lot of different sort of arguments. But that's what Mamdani, his approach, like, look at that statement. Catastrophic escalation in an illegal war of aggression. That's just like anti-Americanism. There's no other way to look at that, really. But that's not to say that every criticism of Trump's actions is anti-Americanism. Obviously, that would be stupid to say that. But some people really are just in it for burning old glory.
And I think this is an older clip, but this is the UN is running out of money. Choke off the money supply, choke off elitism. And we played it before, I think. They're just running out of money. I'm not going to play it again, but America, the United States, says they're not going to give them any more money.
Well, President Gavin Newsom, should such a thing ever be created, would, I'm sure, give a lot of money to the United Nations. So they'll be thinking, maybe we'll just wait it out, see what happens.
It's the tune of, like, I think America contributed up to about almost $500 million a year to this organization that does what? Does exactly what? Forward climate change policies, forward World Health Organization policies. A globalist agenda is what it'd be a fair statement. CBC really showing its colors, like absolutely atrocious, the CBC the last few days in what they've done. And I was going to play some of these clips, but I won't. But they just seem to find the stories that are anti-American, anti-everything all the time, anti-Western, really. And I watched the piece on a lot of this stuff, what you just said. There seems to be this group that really wants to destroy Western cultures. And it's funded, I think Rubio has said a lot of the funding is actually coming out of the Chinese government to destroy Western cultures, being funded, some of these protests and that. But I even look at this photo that CBC ran of women mourning the death of the Ayatollah. I mean, they're very selective in how they pick things, very, very selective in the images that they want to send out. I mean, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And I would think...
Look at Khamenei there, looking like Santa. Hello there, children. It's like, obviously that's a photo within a photo, but it's still, that is the image of him that you see. They are a good laugh, aren't they?
The CBC has no shame, and we're going to show you some of their numbers later here too. But look, and this is from the Globe and Mail. The Globe and Mail has run some pieces, including that one with that Jason character, and where we're going to defeat the Americans by going door to door with guns. Has anybody watched what the Americans have been able to accomplish in their last two operations? Has anybody just had a look, you know, and Chrystia Freeland said American tanks are going to come down the street. We can defeat them if we get. Has anybody just taken a look at what they've done? Like they literally got in there and decapitated the leadership of the Iranian. I mean, the amount of intelligence that would have taken too. So obviously there's somebody on the inside there too that leaked information.
Sorry, people are saying something's AI generated. Are you talking about the CBC thing? If you are, then there you go. That's the link. It's not AI generated. But I don't know what else they could mean. We haven't talked about anything else. But no, it's not. That is really the photograph that they used. Canadian Spider-Man. Oh, you mean? Oh, right. Okay. That CBC used a fake photograph. That's what they're saying. West Asian News Agency was the. I thought they were saying that the image of, you know, the CBC
We don't have
webpage
we don't have a lot of CBC defenders here, I don't think. Put your hand
But
up
it's
if you're
from, the news agency is West Asian News Agency. I can't remember working with them much in my time. Maybe. Certainly possible that it's AI generated.
But look at the Globe and Mail. I mean, the Globe and Mail, like I said, ran that story. I mean, they just feed this fear and anger, and they just feed it. It's just, and if you know somebody that's still susceptible to this, help them get away from the CBC. Help them unfollow their accounts. Take their TV. Do an intervention. Take their television away or something. Take it away because they'll feel a lot better if they're not watching that garbage. Look at, and here's a CBS reporter in Austin. We're not going to play the clip here, but I watched it several times because I couldn't believe it. Because there's a lot of rallies, Iranian rallies, praising Trump and the Americans and the Israel for cutting the head off the snake. And he's on the phone with his news director, I guess, and they tell him not to focus on the positivity about Trump. And he says, they don't want me to do this. He said, I'm doing it anyway. I don't care. I mean, there's got to be good reporters that work for the CBC and CTV. Just stop. Just stop. Don't let them do this to you. Just start telling the truth. Just stop. And here's we won't play this either because I had a lot of music, but it's literally Iranian women celebrating their freedom all over the world. You see it, and American women protesting their right to do it. It's just like unbelievable. Some of these rallies that are out there, and for all the NDPers and all the liberals that are super angry about this and saying this is an illegal war. But they believe in NATO. NATO is their number one thing. Here's your Secretary General, Mark Rutte. Yeah, go ahead and play it.
First of all, say that my thoughts are with the service members, the U.S. service members who made the ultimate sacrifice over the last couple of days. And let me also say that the commander-in-chief, the leader of the free world, President Donald J. Trump, I really commend what is happening here. Taking out Khamenei, taking out the nuclear capability in Iran, but also taking out the ballistic missile program in Iran. This is crucial. And what I see in Europe, I spoke with all the key European leaders over the weekend, is widespread support for what the president is doing, and also making sure that when it comes to logistics, access, defending key US interests in Europe and in the region, the Europeans are really stepping up.
How could you ever be angry with a guy that sounded like that? He's just so friendly, isn't he? Such a gregarious chap. Yeah, Donald J. Trump is doing everything that needs to be done. And that's one of the reasons that we love Dutch people, isn't it? Because they just sound so jokey.
I think you sounded a little bit like Francois there.
No, there's something more serious about it. I don't know what it is, and happier.
We're gonna move on from this.
Champagne is he's another creature entirely.
We're gonna move on this for a second because we've got lots to get through. But Trump was just on CNN saying that there's bigger stuff to come. But I mean, Trump is a braggart for sure. I mean, if one thing, this is gonna be bigger than ever, bigger than bigger. Do you know what's really big? The Really Big Show. The Really Big Show. Nobody's ever seen a show as big as this. And we're trying to break through. We're actually trying to break through. And you can help by getting this out further and farther just by sharing it. And that's the thing. We've grown now. I think our traffic numbers in December were 400 and something thousand views. In January, 1.6. And in this month, February just concluded, we're 2.5 million. So just on YouTube, and we're also, different platforms. So we do thank you. And this show gets out more. We need to hold people accountable. We're getting interviews. We have the food professor today. We have Dan Albus, an MP, conservative MP, coming on Wednesday. And we're trying to book in a lot more. But let's get into other news here. We do have Mark Carney in India. And $100 billion. Let's listen to Mark Carney first, though. Let's listen in.
I believe the prescription for success in this new era is well exemplified by the theme of your G20 presidency in 2023, which I had the honor of attending. That theme, of course, one Earth, one family, one future. Because the challenges of our age cannot be solved by one country alone. And only by building on the principles of one Earth, one family, one future can we forge the partnership worthy of our countries. Today, we are launching a strategic energy partnership with significant potential to expand bilateral energy trade. We've signed, as you've seen, a new critical minerals partnership spanning development, processing, and secure supply chains for clean energy, electric vehicles, and advanced manufacturing. We're deepening our cooperation in clean energy, expanding collaboration across wind, solar, and hydrogen. Because Canada has big plans as well. We plan to double our grid by 2050, and India can be a major partner in this expansion.
That's good. That's good. I like it when you make targets that are out into the future that you never have to be accountable for. Why don't you say 2075? Hydrogen, basically, many people in the world have given up on hydrogen. They're tearing down, not tearing down, but they're closing up hydrogen stations, filling stations in the United States right now, even in California. Hydrogen, is this not what it's, there's better ways. And Canada's still in this hydrogen thing. Mark, it's beneath our feet. That's where our prosperity lies. It's beneath our feet. It's called LNG. It's called oil and gas. Uranium. I know we did a uranium deal out of this. Cameco. That's where it lies. It's nuclear energy. How many nuclear power plants are starting here in Canada? I know that there's one that was been on the go forever in Ontario, an SMR. How many? I know that Cameco and Brookfield are building 8 in the United States. But I mean,
you missed the most important part, man, which is it's in the very, very long statement, not in the short one, but in the comprehensive one, where they said the leaders underscored solutions for carbon capture, utilization, and storage. Utilization spelled in the British way, obviously, which is not how we do it here, but whatever. And they said that's a key area of cooperation, offering a significant opportunity for the sustainable production of energy and critical minerals. And then also go on to say that we're going to buy, this is a bit that seems to be been missed by a lot of people, that we're going to sell them oil and gas, but we're also going to, I guess, buy that same oil back, or buy oil anyway that they refine into petroleum. We're going to buy that back rather than build a refinery or more refineries in Canada. They're going to do it for us.
Hey, can we look at that?
Get the glove out.
So we're going to buy it, and then we're going to ship it, and then we're going to ship it? What? What are we doing?
I think we're gonna pump it out of Alberta. I'll go the other way. I'll go around the Pacific. This is the other thing. I mean, probably more important than that bit of banter there that we were going to play out. What's more important is we're talking about LNG, and India's like, you can't give us enough. We're going to gobble it all up, and that won't be enough. We need more. And yet, the Prime Minister, who seems to be basing the economic renaissance of this country on LNG exports, pretty much, or at least let's say the export of natural resources. Why is there no conversation at all about getting Quebec and New Brunswick and the rest of those sort of eastern provinces to pull their thumbs out and start looking at exporting some of this LNG out of the east, out of the St. Lawrence. Why is that not even a subject of debate? Like, there's no conversation about that. But like the Europeans now, their heads are spinning because we're going to talk about it, aren't we? I assume they're looking at the price of natural gas now, which has shot up, as you would expect with this war in the Gulf. The Europeans are freaking out, but we're not going to be able to help them. You know, well, or maybe we can, but we're going to be kind of the back of the line. We're going to have to do it from the Pacific. It's absurd that we don't have export facilities in the east of Canada, or even extraction facilities. It's kind of makes one's head explode.
I had about an hour-long discussion with one of my friends in the resource sector here this weekend, and we were talking about CCUS, and he said Enron. If anybody knows what Enron is, but it's like an NFT. Like this is not adding value. This is a taxation scheme, and we've got a video on. We won't go through it all. But there's a video on our Now Media YouTube channel here that explains how CCUS works and how it's a great taxation scheme. And that's all it is taxation scheme. Although Mark Carney, Brookfield is the biggest investor in this taxation scheme, so of course he's promoting it. So it's like the Swedes running a report and saying the Gripen's better than the F-35. Imagine that. But the other part of this deal that they've done with India, and the Europeans have done the same deal, and we talked about it on Friday, is we're going to export them LNG. We're just not sure how we're going to get it to the coastline to get it to them. Either we're going to put it in the air maybe, and then it comes back out of the, I don't know. But they want to send us people. That's the big thing. The launch of the new Canadian-India talent and innovation strategy to deepen education collaboration with 13 new partnerships with Canadian and Indian universities. This is what they want. They want to send us people, lots of people. And the colleges and universities were living off of that, Conestoga College comes to mind, where the president there was making $600K a year plus, and they had 86% of their students were foreign. This is what they want to send us. And then there was an interview on CBC where a person from India said that Canada can take up to 100 million people and India can send them 60 million.
That was the High Commissioner, I believe.
So,
not just some randomer.
And there you go. So there you go. So if Canada, if everybody's good with that, we're going to almost we're going to more than double our population.
But they were smart about it though, weren't they? In this statement that they released, and you used the word that they used. That they must have sat around in an office and said, okay, so we'll be taking some, there'll be some visa liberalization or something like that. We'll be taking some Indian workers in exchange for doing this deal. And then they said, all right, but that's not popular right now, is it? The polls say no, we shouldn't do that. So they'll have sat around there scratching their heads and said, how can we sell this? And then some genius would have said, let's not call them immigrants. Let's call them talent. And sure enough, if you look through the statement, under the headline, one family, that's the in capital letters in bold, and then underneath that is investing in talent, and that's where they teach us
the Liberals
what we're going to receive.
The Liberals, with their abysmal record over 11 years, have retained this with marketing, whitewashing of words, and also with the willing help of the government, corrupted and crippled media. They've become the megaphone. We're going to show you that. We'll show you some receipts for that as well. That's what they've done. So I'm not sure how we're getting the LNG to the ports. That's the part that I'm puzzled with. They want LNG, just not sure how we're going to get it there. And then Pierre Poilievre put out this piece saying you didn't need to fly to India to know they want to buy our energy. Again, that's a no shit Sherlock thing, because the Japanese were here. The Germans were here begging. South Koreans were here asking for LNG. Mark Carney and Trudeau said, no business case. Americans signed all those deals. And again, they have not repealed the energy blocking bills here in Canada. And it's almost a year now. Is it? What day is it a year? We're almost like March what? What was the date of the election? March
14. That wasn't the election. That was when he ascended the throne.
Right. Okay, March 14. It's been a year. Almost. We're, 12 days away. 12 days away. And in India, all this stuff is actually blown up while he's been there. And this is a little bit from CSIS here, a little clip here from CSIS on the senior, this is on Iranian officials living here in Canada. Let's listen to this here.
Particularly, in alarming cases over the last year, we've had to reprioritize our operations to counter the actions of Iranian intelligence services and their proxies who have targeted individuals they perceive as threats to their regime. In more than one case, this involved detecting, investigating, and disrupting potentially lethal threats against individuals in Canada.
Yeah, so there's Iranian issues, and that's what we started with in the top of the show, that many of the Iranian higher-ups will likely start fleeing to Canada. They've got a lot of money parked here already. And Canada is seen as a point of weakness. And we've got another one here from CBC talking about this Globe and Mail article that exposed the terrorists from India. Listen to this.
On Monday morning, Canada time, the Globe and Mail, late Sunday evening, published a pretty explosive report naming names and describing in some detail, way beyond what we ever understood to be the case, the foreign interference by India, by two individuals specifically working at Vancouver's consulate, leading up to the death of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. And that, you saw the agitation in the reporter's questioning on it, really trying to push her to say whether, especially with this new information now out there, there was a direct conversation between Prime Minister Mark Carney and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. This information it names the diplomats, names how they were using sort of under the guise of visas to gather information leading up to the killing, and then were involved in communicating information in India, connected with organized crime, and reported back to India once the killing had happened. This is more specific.
That's good for now. And that was right after the Indian High Commissioner said on the weekend that his country never interfered in Canadian affairs. But hey, what we need is another 50 million people from India. That'll fix everything.
But also just pretending as well, pretending that the Liberals have any kind of moral force or moral sense, which they do, obviously. They still pretend that they're the good guys. While this is going on, they go to India. This is all just forgotten about. Mark Carney even cancels a press conference because he's too scared to be pressured on this, to be asked questions about this. You know, this is just pure Machiavellianism. Or what some people would probably call realism or pragmatism or some other sort of euphemism. This is just looking at India and saying, all right, India's too big. Therefore, let's just pretend that they didn't murder someone on Canadian soil and then lie about it. Let's just pretend that they haven't interfered in elections and so on, because it's just, you know, at the end of the day, money is more important than principles. So we're not strong enough, like the US is. We're not strong enough to actually take these criticisms to Delhi and sort of like be a big man about it. We can't do that. We can't bully anyone. We can't influence anyone. So we'll just lie back and take it and think about the money.
Well, let's look at this.
That's basically what's happened. But I mean, I'm not necessarily opposed to that. But it's quite deceitful of the Liberals to pretend to be principled in any way, which they do. Again, I refer everybody back to Mark Carney's hugely overrated pseudo-intellectual speech at Davos, where he talked about no longer living the lie and all the rest of it, talking about American hegemony and resisting American hegemony. Alternatively, you know, you could look at that and say, well, many things, but one of the things is, let's not live the lie and pretend that Canada and the Liberal Party are some kind of morally decent organizations or people. Of course they're not. They're completely self-interested, and they'll do anything. Whatever it takes, they'll do it if it makes them money.
Well, let's just look at this. And Mark Carney went to China, and we do this when we talk about all the interference that China's done, including Mark Carney saying, when the reporter says, China has interfered in our elections, and it seems they want you to win. Carney's response, I don't know. Let's move on. And then we have Iranian now. We have CISA saying Iran is interfering here, and they have terrorist cells here. And now India. Is Canada just a hotbed for whoever wants to come and run? Like in Mexico, obviously the cartels are operating out of Canada. Seems like a great place, doesn't it? Hey,
It's a good place to test things out.
we're the testing ground for crime. And here's Nita Anand here challenged on, and the famous word she's going to use. See if you can recognize the famous word she throws up there when people say, what about all the crime and terrorism now?
The issue of transnational regression.
CSIS is reaffirming its assessment that India is still one of the largest perpetrators of foreign interference. Do you believe CSIS's assessment, or do you believe what a senior official told reporters, that that activity isn't continuing anymore? Which is it?
The words of the senior official are not words that I personally would use. I agree with his comments relating to the guardrails that we have in place, the work we're doing on the security dialogue, the work that we are doing to list the Bishnoi gang as a terrorist entity, the work we did to expel senior.
And those are not, what'd you call those? Wood birds or something? What'd you say they were?
Those making the sound out rose-ringed parakeets.
No, those are the bullshit birds. They're calling her out.
I mean, even her face, she just looks hopeless, doesn't she? She kind of looks like she's doing a kids show and she's pretending to be flabbergasted for the kids. Like, I can't do this.
What this
she's
does,
a bit hopeless.
what this does show is that if there was real reporters going at her all the time for all their failures, she wouldn't last 10 minutes, because right there, she could barely breathe when she had to, because she's had a tough time.
I mean, maybe it is hot as well. Maybe it's humid. But we'll give her that. But it's come on. I mean, if this was a one-off, then we would give her a break. But this is all the time, and it doesn't matter what the climate is. But anyway, I've got to quickly point out that there's some very strange little creature keeps informing me that I have a low IQ. I'm very sad to learn that. I don't know what I'm going to do about that, actually.
Well, then you
I
fit
would
right
say,
in Canada.
I've got low IQ, but you can't even spell my name right. It's literally right there. Look, see, Ian. So I think maybe if we talk about low IQs, maybe yours is not very high either.
let's not get into it. But guardrails, the word. Guardrails, the word. And then obviously Jolie's got eyes wide open, guardrails. Those are the words they get in the morning. Use these words: catalyze, catalyst, guardrail, eyes wide open. And the new word for this week, it's not immigration, it's talent. So get ready for that word to be used a lot. Talent.
And or talents, if it's the plural. So we're going to have several million talents.
Well, the low IQ's Ian, the low IQ Ian, said this.
He's done it again.
The low IQ.
Is he a bot? Can you not see? Look, I'll point it again. Look, Ian.
Okay, if
all letters.
Anyway, we got to move on though. Ian has pointed this out a couple weeks ago when Jolie said, we're gonna get Chinese EVs here. We're gonna make all electric vehicles, and we don't care. And Japan is gonna make vehicles here, and we don't care about America. And Ian said, well, Japan won't make vehicles here if there's no American market. And lo and behold, this is it. This is, first of all, this is from the Canadian Vehicle Manufacturing Association telling you how important CUSMA is. Listen to this.
Now to Pierre Poilievre's speech today, Poilievre outlining his plans to build Canada's economy and how he would help the...
Is that the wrong one? Oh, you can maybe play it. Maybe that is the one. Keep going.
Against Chinese economy and how he would help the Canadian auto sector.
The Conservatives will fight for a tariff-free auto pact with the United States, with shared protections against Chinese imports. In short, here's the deal. We should agree to keep Chinese vehicles out if Americans agree to let Canadian vehicles in. A full exemption to buy American rules so that our companies can compete on.
That's the wrong link and the wrong slide there, but That's fine. It's basically saying that Kuzma is all that important. And I mean, it's just, and Japan makes it clear that they will not invest in Canada unless they can actually access the American market. And they're not in favor of Beijing coming here. I mean, those are just the obvious statements, right? Japan is not a
Well, you said that, mate. But why was nobody saying that for months? Why was that not being literally nobody was saying that?
Well, you said
it took the Japanese to come out and say, "Oh yeah, like obviously Canada's not a big enough market for us to come and build, build factories and to manufacture cars just in Canada. Obviously not. I mean, come
Well,
on."
we do have the Japanese ambassador here. Let's listen to what he has to say. We do have that one here. That one, yeah, try that one.
That last time you were here, we were talking about the opening of an EV operation. I was looking at a statistic that was pretty startling that showed, a study this year showed that Toyota and Honda produced 77% of the cars and light trucks built in Canada last year, which reflects a pretty steep decline for the U.S. car makers. Where do you see the future of Japanese production in Canada?
I think including the automakers, the Japanese companies see the Canadian market with strong interest. There are 5 reasons. One, enormous resources, critical minerals and others, oil and gas. And second, quality of labor. Thanks to their very effective migration policies, those companies can hire all those people need high-end to their workers. And 3, society is very stable. They are very welcoming. And 4th, the federal government and provincial governments are very generous to welcome, to invite investments. And 5th,
the auto sector. I mentioned that last time you were here,
That's
we were
good.
talking about.
We just wanted the end clip there reversed here. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties. Can you just go play the last 20 seconds of that clip? Because that's the important part.
In Canada, but at the same time exported to the U.S. market. I think those companies, private companies, that means they have to calculate to increase profit. So Kuzma is very important part of the calculation.
Actually, if we played the right piece there, it's critical. Kuzma and the Japan will make cars in Canada to export them to the United States of America. I mean, Jolie, she just makes stuff up, and then I don't know, is it every day, one day to the next, where she makes stuff up? When she made those statements and basically saying we don't need America, we have Japan. Japan won't come here and build cars if it can't sell them to the United States. They're surely not going to build them here to sell them back to Japan, are they?
But how long was Melanie Jolie talking about that as if it was, as if that was going to happen? As if they were just going to come build them here. And that was, not only was that kind of, Kuzma was not being mentioned, but Kuzma was being mentioned. It was because the Americans are unreliable and they want to take our auto industry, well, we'll just, Japan's just going to come and do it. It was, the context was there, but she just got absolutely everything wrong. And nobody in the Liberal government said otherwise. And even nobody in the press asked her.
Flip-flop.
Yeah, even Ducky. This is the thing. It's. I feel like they've just been trying to fool the Canadian people, and apparently they succeeded in fooling the press because they didn't ask any questions about that. And even we here, certainly myself, with such a pitifully low IQ, even I could see that. I can't even put the triangle in the triangle hole, but I could still see that. So what does that tell you about our press? And what does that tell you about our elite in general? Are they actually this stupid? Do you know what I mean? Triangle in triangle hole guy. I can't do it. I can't figure it out. But I can figure this out, and they can't. So how dumb does that make them? Seriously. And should we be scared? Should we be kind of stockpiling food? Should we get tins of food now? Because I don't understand how this whole system is going to continue to function if it's run by people who are this stupid.
I'm going to say this right now. The strategic think tank is located right here on the Really Big Show, because we pointed this out a long time ago. We pointed out energy is everything a long time ago. We pointed out so many things. drop the EV mandate. All these things you're going to learn here first. And obviously, Melanie Jolie, not a fan of the show like Chrystia Freeland. She needs to start
That's
watching.
why Freeland quit, isn't it? Because she figured it out. She listened to us so long. She was like, God, this government's stupid. Like, I'm going.
Here's another person that's finally, it's not like these people have come to the realization. They've actually found a way that they're okay to get their voice out there, and they're not scared anymore from cancel culture. That's the biggest thing that's changed in Canada. Because here's an energy expert. Here is the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Business Council of Canada. Listen to what he says here.
I have to be honest with you. The last many years have been a challenge. I am asked repeatedly about how a country like Canada, blessed with resource wealth, world-class talent, and sophisticated capital markets, struggles to provide its trading partners with the goods they need to feel safe, secure, and to prosper. At the same time, Canada's economic and national security is under siege. Protectionist policies continue to grow, and our democratic institutions continue to be threatened. Our allies and trading partners face the same headwinds, and now more than ever are seeking to lock in safe and secure supplies of energy, food, and critical minerals. Our world-class resources, whether it's in uranium, nickel, potash, grain, oil and gas, compete in global markets. Unfortunately, we are losing market share. Once a top 10 supplier of many minerals and agri-food products, we're losing out to our competitors, of which many of them are in countries with weaker environmental standards and less respect for the rule of law. Our energy, our story is one of unfulfilled potential. LNG provides a striking example of where policy missteps and onerous regulatory barriers have kept Canada shackled and unable to reach its full potential, leaving us on the sidelines as other countries take the place that should have been Canada's as an energy supplier for the democratic world. Despite being blessed with enormous natural gas reserves and shores upon 3 of the world's 4 oceans, Canada has struggled to build the right infrastructure to move its energy products and resources to Tidewater. Even just 2 months ago, S&P Global released a study where it found that it takes over 20 years to discover, approve, and build a mine in Canada, ranking us amongst the countries with the longest lead time in the world.
That's good. We've been saying all this stuff since we've been on, and I've been saying on my LinkedIn, you can go read about it for a few years ago. Again, Ian nails it, the low IQ Ian nails it, and he links it to weakness of leadership. And it's what we've suffered through. That comment, we've done that. We go back and look at our YouTube. A comment must have hit only Canada 11 years ago. Because we've done this to ourselves. We say it on the show all the time. Canada is the richest resource nation by diversity, and also is one of the worst nations in the world as far as squandering our natural wealth. We've offered everything up at the climate gods, and some people have gotten really rich off of this, and there's conflicts of interest. Yet the media in Canada, as I say, is one of the biggest problems, is because they don't call it into question. Mark Carney right now has major conflicts of interest, and he brought it up again, CCUS. It's a major conflict of interest, and we're going to go down the same road. We're going to end the same place this guy's pointing out, which we pointed out time and time again. How can we be here where we have record lineups at food banks? How can we be here when we've squandered so much? So many people in Canada suffer because of liberal policies and weakness of leadership, and a media that acts as both shield and spear for a government that feeds the elitists and starves its population.
I approve heartily of that rant. The only thing that I would add to it is that Mark Carney today in India, I think it was today, in like sort of Indian afternoon time or something like that. He actually said in his little speech, no, sorry, this was yesterday actually. He said in his little speech, for too long, Canada has been known around the world as, the country of overregulation and red tape and things like that. It's like he knows it. Mark Carney knows it. And then also, if you look back to, we're going to go at warp speed through the galaxy, fixing everything and doing all these great things. So in that sense, it's even worse than what you just said, because Mark Carney understands. Mark Carney could be a guest on this show, and he would be agreeing with everything that we say, pretty much, at least about this, about regulations. And he's the Prime Minister now, and he hasn't done a damn thing. He hasn't done anything. He's put this insane legislation on the books that gives him the right to fast track. Well, not fast track's the wrong way to look at it. It gives him the right to exempt certain projects from other laws. That was his great plan. That was warp speed. How is that gonna speed up approvals like in obscure mine sites in like Nunavut or something like that? Like, how is that going to do that? How is that going to happen? And alas, you say the press are too incurious to press him on that. Indeed. And so what's the price? Where's the democratic pain for Mark Carney? He's not suffering any, is he? He's flying high in the polls. This isn't even an issue that people are really aware of or bothered about. But nothing is happening. And this is kind of when people say, well, what's the point of Pierre Poilievre? Like, what's the point of the Conservative Party now? Because the Liberals have just stolen all of their policies. I would say, one could argue, this is the point. Because the Conservatives really do want to actually get those stupid laws off the books and really make an effort to change this. Whereas the Liberals, they said they wanted to, but they haven't done it. And they've had a year now. Well, I mean, let's say Mark Carney's had a year. When is it going to happen?
The other thing is that the CCUS that they're still pushing, it seems to be one of his pillars, and it benefits Brookfield immensely. And obviously, if it benefits Brookfield, it benefits Mark Carney immensely, to the detriment of Canada, because we can't compete. We did this story on Friday. $20 a barrel it's going to cost to do these new carbon taxes here in Canada. It's just a carbon tax scheme that adds no value other than fills the pockets of corporations, and one certain corporation named Brookfield. Puts us in the same spot. Meanwhile, this is, we don't have a lot of time because we got a lot here to get through, but, and this is the Secretary of Energy there, Chris Wright, saying that, that people aren't learning $2 trillion to lower fossil fuels by 2%. And he's just basically coming out and saying that it's just robbing wealth from the people. That's what all these policies did, was rob wealth. Meanwhile, Stephen Guilbeault won't answer the questions on those allegedly, we have to say allegedly, because $250 million to his corporations. And how much to these failed battery plants here? $50 billion in Canada. No accountability, none whatsoever. And look at this chart here. USA now produces more oil than Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. And look at Canada. Canada could be massive in these things. Look at Canada. And then Canada in natural gas. Canada, no business case for LNG. Look at Canada there. What are we like? Way down the list there. And it's not like we don't have it. It's not like we don't have the technology. Enbridge, one of Canada's great companies, top 10 company here in Canada. What did they say recently? There's just too much regulation. They're just going to go somewhere else with their capital. They said it. And nobody...
Well, they also said the wounds are still fresh.
Yeah.
From when we spent billions and billions of dollars. And then Trudeau just said, nah. Like, obviously, yeah, that's like... They keep talking about Canada's a safe jurisdiction. We're very responsible, everything's good. Everything's going to be fine here. We're not like those dishonest people in the third world. What do you call that then? That was a total epic rug pull where they lost. I mean, how much was it? It was billions of dollars that they lost.
These organizations, and here's a judgment against one of these organizations. And it's a $345 million verdict against Greenpeace after their environmental militants attempted to violently block the Dakota Access oil pipeline. And Greenpeace now says it's likely to face bankruptcy if they have to pay that fine.
Wow, I'm sure a lot of tears would be shed if that happened.
And the BC NDP has been promoting electrifications without knowing where the electricity will come from. And if you look at this, there's a chart here that shows you BC's electricity trade for the last 3 years. Is blue is where we export, red is where we import. How are we doing? And we import, again, we import the oranges from Alberta. There you go. We sit on vast resources here in British Columbia, and that's it right there. Even in the locally here, Ford has applied to open an LNG plant here to make electricity to meet demand. And they were told by the BC government, can you guess what they were told? Denied. The word is denied. And in this world of AI and energy and all that stuff, one can't even do fintech here. This chart, you should burn this one into your retina as well. This is BC NDP policy right here. BC with a record deficit and another record budget deficit right there. And it's not like we don't have any energy. 20 years to get a mine online. Anybody? We do this to ourselves. Go back and play that clip from that guy or watch our shows on a regular basis. Energy is everything. Cheap, reliable energy is prosperity. That's it. That's all Melanie Jolie needs to wake up in the morning is read those things, not guardrails. We go into everything with open eyes and just because it's lies what they're doing. They're telling you lies. Telling you literally lies.
But it's also the bigger story here, which is just the impoverishment of Canada, particularly in comparison to the United States, which didn't have these problems. The United States built out, like, we were looking at that biggest oil producer, biggest gas producer. I don't know why it has the word Trump inside of the US column. This is something that started to happen under George Bush and then really kicked off under Barack Obama. But, the Americans had no qualms about that. They just said, oh, great, if we do this fracking, and we get the shale gas and then later shale oil, if we do it, we'll become the world's biggest energy producer. And they thought, all right, then, let's do it. Because it would be spectacularly dumb to say no to this opportunity, wouldn't it? Now look at the Americans, look at GDP per capita, look at them in every chart and put them next to Canada. They go up, we go down. In Canada, we said no. We're sitting on top of all of this, just literally just money there to pick up, basically. Just coins on the floor. And we just said, nah. And now we have GDP per capita lower than Israel, I believe. Israel, a tiny country that's at war sort of 70% of the time. They draft their kids so that they can't work. They have to go and fight. And Israel is doing better economically than Canada. It's just... and BC is like Canada in miniature, isn't it? Just look at the squandered wealth.
Amplified.
This chart here is just... this should be on billboards around Vancouver. This should be everywhere.
Imagine you're walking around out there in the forest and you've got a basket and you're collecting, what you think you're going to go out there and collect gold. And you're walking around and you say, oh, there's a piece of gold. No, you're not allowed to take that. No. Not that. Nope.
That would be unfair on the leprechauns. We can't do that.
Yours is at the top of the mountain there, and it's not gold. It's actually what we call dandelions. You need those.
Social justice.
No. It's just this. Yeah, you're right. This should be on a billboard, and this should have underneath it, NDP policies have done this to impoverish this province. David Eby could have a picture there of him saying, I did that.
And people see this. People see things like this, or they see us having a rant, and they just think, they just want these ugly industrial-looking plants where they suck oil out of the ground, and like horrible black goo and all the gas and lots of hard hats and things. And it's like, that's not for me. Like, I live in Vancouver. Like, I'm an assistant PR representative or something, like, and I love to go for hikes up Grouse Mountain. It's like, no, this is very much about you. This is not about black goo and all that sort of stuff that you don't like, and that probably makes you shake and get a little bit afraid. It's not about that. This is like having a new phone and a bigger house, or a house at all and a newer car and food, a fridge full of food. This is like all the cool things you can do in life when you're not scraping around on the ground for pennies. It's wealth, it's prosperity, it's human development. You know, people like to talk about the Human Development Index. That's what it is. And it's been rejected. It was there for the taking, and it's been rejected.
Squandered.
And that just, there's
Squandered.
nothing sadder than that.
Squandered. And the sad thing is that it seems to be the eye of Sauron, or whatever you want to call it, is now focusing on one of the last bastions of wealth, one of the last bastions of wealth left here in Canada, and that's our pension funds. And it seems like Brookfield and other countries want access to those pension fund dollars. And they're going to sell them CCUS. They're going to sell them carbon credits. And if I advise anybody, just go look at what a carbon credit looks like. This that trades on the European Stock Exchange there. You can go see it. I think we showed it to you last week. It's going to be pension funds full of NFTs. But we had a lot to get through. But Trump was in Texas as well before the war started there, talking about how they're going to get energy flowing in the United States. That is one of his campaign promises: close the border and drill, baby, drill. I mean, he had a couple of slogans. And he's delivering on both of those: closing the border, mass deportation, and drill, baby, drill. Energy is everything. You can't have that military without massive amounts of energy. And that's China's weakness, is energy. And it just got weaker after Venezuela and what's going on in Iran. And here it is, Chancellor Merz is finally thinking that maybe the problem is that Germans aren't working hard enough, as opposed to, we won't play the clip because we don't have enough time. But Merz, it's all about energy, man. Like, you basically starved your nation of energy, shut down your nuclear plants. You relied on Russian LNG. Like, it's a comedy of errors. It's like your virtue signaling got in the way of your common sense, really. And that's what's going on in Canada too. I think in Canada there's some people that are actually making money off of this. You know, the Brookfields and that make money off this climate agenda. Carney said it himself. We're going to make a lot of money. And then there's just the useful idiots that think they're actually saving the planet by stopping you from having prosperity. And I think a lot of people just believe in the religion, and some people, they believe the science is decided or whatever. But Germany really suffering. They're losing automobile plants. Manufacturing is big in Germany. That's their big industry, manufacturing. And they're losing like plants, like Mercedes plants, to other countries that have cheaper energy. Because energy is everything. Who would have thought, hey?
But the Germans, I just have to say, I mean, it's a familiar story now. But when you alluded to it, I'm not exaggerating. I felt the sort of the spear in my heart when you mentioned that they decommissioned their nuclear power plants. And do you know why they did that? Because there was this hurts to even enunciate as well. This is painful. But they did it because there was a tsunami in the Pacific Ocean.
Fukushima.
And the Germans said, "Oh, we can't have nuclear power plants." It's how stupid. How stupid.
Shall we pull up the globe? Hey, shall we pull up the globe? Look at Germany. Shall we pull up the globe? Germany, how big of the tidal wave would have to hit Germany to affect its power plants in Germany? How big would the tidal wave have to be, Merz? You know? Because
well, it was Merkel, the other Mer. But it's just kind of that really has to be the stupidest decision of the last century or something like that. I mean, the only rivals, the stupid decision come out of Germany as well. Germany's got a monopoly on stupid decisions in the last 100 years. But I mean, what the hell were they thinking? How stupid. What a betrayal of the German people that was. What an extraordinary betrayal.
Yeah, I was a big investor in uranium because I'm a big believer in nuclear energy. And Fukushima obviously was a bad day for uranium stocks and nuclear energy, including the panic buy. Again, it was a tidal wave or tsunami that flooded Fukushima and then started a core meltdown. Again, Germany is not on a shoreline. And they basically started decommissioning their plants like the next day, some of them. Do you know what I mean? Like they went like, whoever was in the anti-nuclear energy thing that gained from wind or whatever, like these lobby groups, just went to town. And they basically, somebody made a lot of money likely in the alternative energies, and the people paid the price. And they're paying the price today when they're losing their jobs.
They went elbows in on solar in Germany as well. I would advise somebody, if anyone's interested, if you're following along live here, just type in sunshine map Europe into Google and have a look. The first one there from Wikipedia. Just have a look at Germany. It's one of the gloomiest places on earth. But the Germans went all in on solar after having killed their nuclear power plants. It's like sometimes people make decisions so stupid that you almost kind of think, I can't even feel sorry for you, because it was just so stupid. It's like you've dug your own grave here. But as somebody that really loves Germany,
I think I should keep this beside me.
Heartbreaking.
I should keep this beside me and just like could have said to Merkel at the time, consult the globe, and you're a bit inland, just a titch inland there, right? Anyway, the globe wouldn't have cost that much.
Also, you don't get massive earthquakes that produce tsunamis. That doesn't really happen in the Germany area. It doesn't happen on the Rhine.
Climate change could cause that. The crime is another big one that affects Canadians, and the Liberal policies have hurt many Canadians, literally hurt many Canadians. And the gaslighting continues to hurt Canadians. Listen to this, though.
Said Canada's immigration system is under control. In the GTA, a man in his 30s arranged to pay $140 to sexually exploit a 15-year-old. That's my daughter's age. He was arrested with cash in hand, went to court, and because of his immigration status, will not even receive a criminal record.
Seriously?
How is that under control? When will the Prime Minister take responsibility and finally fire his immigration minister?
Since we've taken government, we've implemented many changes to the Criminal Code of Canada, making it, strengthening it, over 80 different changes to the code in C-14 alone, Mr. Speaker. It is heinous what I'm hearing from the other side, and the provincial courts should be handling these cases. These cases are tried in provincial trial courts, and they should deal with these situations as adequately as they should. And so it is really upsetting to hear.
That's good. New government? No. This is your government for the past 11 years. And I like the finger pointing at the end, because they're running out of room. They're running out of room in this nonsense. And what do they focus on? Online. The hate speech is much more important than this, I guess. These things, where somebody gets killed in their home, or you're raping young girls.
But this hasn't been touched. Obviously, we should point that out as well. Not been touched by the media. Whereas in the United States, they have cases exactly like this, and the media reports on them. Even the sort of left-leaning media still feels an obligation to report on it. Not so much in Canada.
Yeah. And here's the, again, this is one from Holly Donald Blacklocks. The, what you call it, the morally right, I guess, morally correct. The Chief Electoral Officer, Stephen Parole, declined to register in Alberta Sovereignty Party after the staff carefully scrutinized membership rolls for technical disqualification. Imagine that, eh? And the Elections Canada, not exactly a model elections place, right? With that one vote that they made a mistake on, and they awarded it to the Liberals. Alberta's first nodal said he was convinced party members were singled out for disqualification. If Quebec can have a party that looks after Quebec, would it not be fair for Alberta to have a party that looks after Alberta? But Elections Canada, nah. Hey? Feds profile student debtors. The Department of Employment and Access to Information Research compiled the first ever demographic profile of debtors under the Canada Student Loan Program. Tradespeople and engineers were most likely to meet their payments. Imagine that. We said that here on this show. You want to make money in the future, get your hands dirty. Don't go get those MBAs and all those liberal arts degrees, because you're going to have a tough time finding a job, and the ability to pay back your loan is probably going to be 0 to nil. What is that? What's between 0 and nil? Somewhere in there, right? Again, you can go watch Ian and I's predictions 2026. The low IQ Ian, marginally one point higher Jim. I'm giving myself a point higher than you because they didn't bash me, so obviously I must be smarter.
Yeah, they actually think you're very smart. I would point out though as well, I mean, I know we haven't got all that much time, so I'll not go into too much detail, but have a look at the latest university graduate jobs figures in England, in the United Kingdom. They released, there was a report, I think it might have been Bloomberg, where they said the total number of jobs, graduate jobs, available to new graduates, I think in 2025, was something like maybe 5% of the proportion of graduates. So 95% of graduates, therefore, were not looking like they were going to get a university level job. And that's important, I think, Britain, because they've gone absolutely crazy on giving everybody a degree. I think it's more than 50% of the population. Although it's the same in Canada, actually, isn't it? Or maybe even a little bit worse in Canada. So it's a really good sort of study to look at that, because as we've said many times, AI now is getting so good that it's killing the first job market. It's killing the white collar entry level job market. And we're really seeing that. We're starting to see that in the data now. And it's kind of worrying. Certainly when it comes to loans, yeah. I mean, that could be a real albatross around our necks.
I was a mine site controller, and I can tell you right now, a lot of the guys on site, I think we were building a mine. It was about 150 people on site. And the Red Seal, which is a national thing, Red Seal, electricians and welders and all those things that we brought in from all over the country, from Newfoundland, a lot of Newfoundlanders, and British Columbia and everything. We flew them into Thompson, Manitoba. Is another promise that Carney and Liberals made was to kind of make a Red Seal for our healthcare stuff and that. How much of that's done so far? Right, none. None of that. It's that province or territory up there. None of it is done. And that's what, that could be a Liberal slogan. None of it. None of it. But look at the Liberals. I got this. They send me letters all the time. They love me. It's been almost a year since, we know that. It's almost a year now since Mark Carney was elected to lead our party. They're now not getting enough donations, so now they're offering contests. I thought that was hilarious. They're actually, if you give them, it's your last day to chip in, and if you do, you get entered in to win a Montreal moment. So that's what democracy means in Canada. If you chip in, you can get a shot at a concert. That's what the Liberals with crumbs, they send you crumbs, bread and circuses. Now, instead of like getting the masses lucky, it's basically like a lottery now. If you chip in, you could be one of the few that gets to eat tomorrow. Lucky you. You remember steak? You remember what steak tasted like? Most of you don't. But if you win, if you chip in and you win, you too could have steak. And this is the problem right here. Holly Nome points this out. We did the story last year. Media in Canada is crippled, corrupted. And it's right there. More salaries are paid by the government than anything. And of course, they don't ask the questions. They were on the plane. They were literally on the plane. They were on the plane with Mark Carney. We're going to show you later. Nothing. But look, here's CBC. Look at this. Look at CBC. This is their viewing since 2014, 2015. Look at that. If any are in the comments here, does anybody still watch the CBC? Somebody says you're smart here. Look, somebody says you're smart. Look at that. See? Look at that.
Thank you. Wow. Maybe it's not all is lost.
And then somebody said I'm also smart. So I mean, there's no better historian here in the media, I don't think, than Ian. Like I don't think anybody in the media in Canada understands history better than Ian, and that's what we bring to the table.
As a time traveler.
And my blue collar background, and I've done a lot of the blue collar jobs and resources. But look at this. If you look at the other side of this, cost per viewer for the CBC skyrocketing because their money keeps going up. They're now at 1.6 that they bleed you for, plus they make about 400 million. So a $2 billion budget to deliver you straight up sausage roll garbage on a regular basis. Straight up garbage. Look at this. There needs to be a referendum where people get to decide and maybe fund some of the CBC shows in that. Like, I mean, they make some good shows like, like Corner Gas. I don't know. There's some good shows. Beachcombers. I'm thinking way back now. But they're news. They don't produce news. They produce propaganda. Look at their viewing hours. I think you got their viewing hours. Everything is just bleh. And here's Mackenzie Gray. Isn't he the lead, what is he, the political guy for is it the Globe and Mail? Who's he for? He's one of those guys for one of the big publications there. Mackenzie Gray. He's a big deal.
I could tell you, but I don't know. Let me have a look.
He is actually a big deal.
Global,
yeah.
Who watches Global anymore these days?
Mark Carney supposed to have a press conference ever, but canceled. And no, he hasn't met with the press since he's gone there. Hey, pretty cool, eh? And they're on the plane. They're literally on this plane with him. Trump holds press conferences on the plane.
By the way, on that subject, I didn't mention it earlier. I probably should have done. But did you see before he made this appearance this morning, Trump hadn't actually made an appearance, had he? He just released two like pre-recorded videos on Truth Social. So what he was doing instead was speaking to all the press, and he was like calling
individual interviews, yeah.
And did you see some of the one of them is called MS Now, which I literally had never even heard of, and I investigated, and it's like a Democratic Party sort of left wing. Oh no, sorry, it's not. That's not MS Now. That's MSNBC. But there was some other like left wing or really obscure left wing TV channel. They were one of the ones that were interviewed. CNN had a massive scoop because he gave them an exclusive interview. The Atlantic magazine, which spends most of its time talking about how Trump is Hitler, they got an interview.
Yeah.
Like basically all of the left wing press that inquired were granted an interview with President Trump there. While he's conducting a war. And it just made me think at the time, I was like, can you imagine if Canada was involved in anything of this kind? Mark Carney wouldn't even see his face. He wouldn't even send a tweet. You wouldn't hear from him because he's just hiding all the time. And here he is in India. He won't even speak with his friends who are on the government payroll. He won't even speak with them.
So the question is,
whereas you've got Donald Trump having conversations with like the Atlantic magazine and random left-wing cable news outlets. It's just like, the contrast is shocking.
So the question is the back of the plane just loaded with sausage rolls and they're just all back there gorging and Carney's saying, hey, come and have a chat. And they're just, can't. like it's absolutely atrocious. And they can't even operate email because they can't even respond to us. We're an accredited news organization, even accredited by their lunatic accreditation process, which shouldn't be allowed in the first place. But here it is. They just refuse accountability. They refuse accountability. And they say Trump is a threat to democracy. They are literally the threat to democracy. Here's Stephen Guilbeault being talked to after. They're not supposed to block you on X. But here's Stephen Guilbeault. I don't even think he's responded to. How many emails have you sent him? Here's Stephen Guilbeault being questioned by none other than Ezra Levant after he was forced to pay 20 grand in a court. He lost in court to Ezra Levant here.
After losing a court case for illegally blocking me and then using taxpayer money to pay the fine, this entitled politician was not happy when we showed up.
Minister Guilbeault, you lost a court case to me and the judge ordered you to pay $20,000, but instead of paying it yourself, you had taxpayers pay for it. You illegally blocked me on Twitter. Why did you do that? Why don't you think you have to answer for $20,000 of legal bills that you sent to the taxpayer to pay your fine? Why aren't you talking about it? You had a lot to say in court. You claimed that your Twitter account was a personal account. If that's the case, why didn't you pay the fine personally? Do you disrespect taxpayers, Mr. Guilbeault?
You know that in the US, if that happened, the other media outlets would have went after him for not answering. But in Canada, nothing. Stephen,
Again, I just find that sad because it's almost like developing world. You know, it's almost like halfway between third world country and a developed country. That's what their media looks like. And we're in Canada. This isn't even like, this shouldn't be partisan. And it's certainly, it doesn't give me any amusement. It's just, this is primitive. This is like the media landscape and the sort of democratic vigor in this country is seriously degraded. It's actually, if the UN was worth anything, they would release a report into press freedom and democratic institutions in Canada, because that's not normal. The way he's acting there as well, just ignoring somebody, that's really not normal.
They are servants of the public, and they refuse to be held accountable. And it's over and over and over and over and over again. Over and over again. And here's some more accountability. We talked about this pillar of accountability. We had Franco on from the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. And Jason Jacks, after he came out and called their budgets shocking and stupefying, tomorrow his contract runs out. And if they leave that position open, it's just another pillar of accountability being destroyed by the Liberal government. Canadians should be angry. This should be angry if this is allowed to happen here in Canada. Every piece of accountability. The Online News Act is crippling media. Close to 100 have failed in Canada, and they obviously want that to happen because the only voice they want is the CBC that is basically at the back of the plane stuffing its faces with sausage rolls and not even asking questions on conflicts of interest. Yeah, blink twice if you need to be liberated. We're blinking. We can't blink fast enough. Help.
It's, it's very serious though. I just want to sort of underline that attitude, like ignoring journalists, running away from journalists, ignoring emails, refusing interviews. It's a real sickness. It's a horrible disease in the body politic, dare I say, in the sort of democratic system in this country. And it's deadly. You can only make really stupid decisions and stay in power if your press doesn't work properly and you don't have a relationship with the press. That's really the only circumstances in which that can happen in a democracy. I just think it's probably the number one issue, I would say, in terms of what's killing Canada's democracy or what's weakening it. It's this failure of both politicians and the press to speak to each other and ask the right questions and answer the right questions. It's tragic.
We're going to skip a couple things, but we're going to go to this poll. Like, polls are also manipulated. It's in how you ask the question, and that's what we've said. Many of these polls also funded by none other than the Liberal government. And if you look at this poll here, the questions here, the two choices you have, or three choices you have, is like Pierre Poilievre is a radical extremist. Pierre Poilievre would bow down to Trump. None of the above and don't know. Right? Like, just like... Oh my. And then these ones here, these are the ones that actually take a lot of money from the government. And we're going to skip some stories here because we got the food professor on at noon here, but we're going to try to finish up here so we can take a bit of a break before we come back to it. we're going to skip that one too here. But gold rocking for sure. Gold up. I don't know if it's up right now, but the market's kind of shrugging off the whole thing, you know. Do you know what I mean? Like the whole invasion. So like a lot of times I look at the market and see how serious the market's actually taking what's going on. And, you know, gold and silver were up this morning initially, but now, you know, gold's up marginally, up 44 bucks. Silver's actually off. And, you know, oil up a little bit for sure. Oil has been trending up because they've been expecting this, obviously. But the market's basically flat. So the PDAC is going on in Toronto right now, which is, you know, the Prospectors Development Association. So, you know, gold getting a lot of attention, but it takes 20 years to get a mine on site here. One of the, I was talking to my buddy who's in the junior resource sector, and Canada, it's starved off junior stocks for exploration for, it's been a bear market for 15 years now. So all of that has got, like, even when we try to put stuff online, you need the explorers that discover, and then you get to discovery, and then you sell it to a, you know, mid-tier, and then in a major. All that's kind of choked off. The only play, and we haven't seen anything since Great Bear Resources. I was lucky enough to be part of Great Bear when it sold to Kinross. American Eagle is one right now that's happening here in Canada that has got some good news. But there's very little news in the whole junior resource sector here. And full disclosure, I do own some American Eagle. I'm just saying in the resource sector, it's very sparse right now in the, just in that sector. You know, you talk about mining and stuff like that, but I mean, it's very tough indeed for the sector. And obviously the price of oil up a bit. And somebody put this, did you put this in? No business case alert, LNG? Is that you? Ian? Let's put that up there. No business case for LNG. What's that?
It's just because the oil and gas prices surge. Got more countries begging for LNG. We have to remember Justin Trudeau.
He's finding it here. Let's see if we're going to put it up there for you. No business case for sure. Because why would there be? Hey?
Just think of all the money that's being made right now as we speak.
That
Like
alone,
people selling LNG.
that alone should lose the Liberals who send them to hinterland forever. But again, the Canadian public, polls, according to the polls, like it's better than ever. Yeah, Canada has.
I think it really does come down to some extent, anyway, to a substantial extent. I think to classism. I think it's like a class war. People think of LNG, mining, oil, whatever it is, as like blue collar, and like that's what the working class does. You know, you hear Mark Carney often say Canada's the most educated population in the world. Not really educated. Just it has the population with the highest proportion of degrees in the world, which isn't the same necessarily as being educated. But I think a lot of people that get degrees think that, oh, like I'm white collar now. And they look at things like that. They look at the hard hats and they look at the men with shovels driving trucks and things, and they just think, that's not for me. I don't care about that. You know, that's not a promotion at my consultancy firm or something like that. And they're not interested. And I think that prejudice is at the heart of this. And that's why there aren't more people furious about Justin Trudeau's decision to kill the LNG sector before it could be born.
Absolutely crazy. And then, you know, like you talk about the tech sector, even Shopify getting clobbered a little bit here by the AI trade scare. And the Shopify chart, you can see that here, the next one there. A lot of the AI has kind of killed a lot of that SaaS stuff, software as a service. We're almost through here, and then we're going to get to the Food Professor will be on at noon there, so you can jump back in at noon for that. Not only do we have a federal debt problem, but our national problem, we're seeing provinces post major budget deficits. We saw that in BC. BC with a massive budget, and we can go back to that chart we had earlier. Don't go back to it, but I mean, we could have went back to it, showing you the massive deficit BC's posted in a province that should be just going crazy for. It's going to get worse.
It's going to get so much worse when the ratings agencies finish their reports, which are being written furiously, I'm sure, right now.
So we've got a federal government running large deficits. We've got provincial governments running large deficits, including Alberta right now. And 10% of federal tax dollars goes to servicing the country's debt right now. And if you talk about the provincial debt that goes with it, and again, a lot of this all has to do with the weakness of leadership and the policies that benefit the few at the expense of the many, the policies that are suppressed our natural resources. So go back and play that clip from that guy, because we've been saying it over and over. If it hasn't sunk in from what we said, you can go play what he said. We're doing it to ourselves. It's not Donald Trump. America is not our enemy. We are our own worst enemy. In the conservative leadership here for British Columbia, even if the Conservatives get a new leader and they get a good leader and they win the election, man, do they have a lot to fix. It's going to be tough going. But here's the Renee Merrifield and I. Renee will be on tomorrow. We're going to try and get each of these leaders in now because they're dropped the final 9 here because these people made it past all the things that they had to do and paid the money. There's a couple of dropouts. Bruce Banham, Harman Bangu I've interviewed before, Ian Black, Carrie Elliott, Carrie Lynn Findlay, Yuri Fulmer, Warren Ham. He's reached out to us. He wants to be interviewed. Daryl Jones and Peter Milbar, who I've interviewed in the past. We're going to see if we can get interviews with each and every one of them and see how they can fix things to go further. David Eby still going out and blaming AI, not taking any responsibility whatsoever in the Tumbler Ridge tragedy. Imagine if this was American media. David Eby would have resigned by now probably. But he's found himself a new scapegoat. And this here, I don't know much about this already, so I'm not going to say too much about it, but we're going to reach out on it. But somebody said that the Musqueam First Nation signed a deal with the government on Vancouver property rights. I don't know. I mean, I'd have to go and look on it. This is on the internet being shared a lot, so not sure if it's true or not.
I've read that press release there. It was actually released, as it says there, February 20th. So it's actually quite old. People have just started to realize it, I think, now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've read the press release, and it's full of the usual sort of bureaucratic gobbledygook where they don't actually really say anything. And they just say, oh, we're just going to share land management and fishing responsibilities and things like that. But obviously other people are looking at that and saying it's not just going to be fishing rights. But ultimately, anyway, they've been recognized as having Aboriginal title over that land. And then there are other nations, tribes, whatever, saying, actually, no, that's ours. We need that. We should have Aboriginal title over that. So, on it goes.
Yeah, I mean, again, in Canada right now, between the Liberals and the NDP, they've put so much mud on the wall. Nobody knows what's what. And it's scared away investment. Do you know what I mean? Scared away investment. It's literally scared investment away. And, the media wants...
We should interview that before we forget. We should interview that chap again,
Jeff
the one
Boyd.
that you've interviewed a couple of times.
Yeah, we'll get him on. The media wants you to pretend that the winning hockey teams, the U.S., the men's and the women's, don't like each other. We don't have time to play the clip. But anyway, they appeared on the SNL, I think, live together, getting along famously. But hey. Then I do have one last clip here, I think. Yeah, one last clip here. And it's, actually, we won't play that. Yeah. Just talking to myself here. Here's the differences. Kamala Harris could have been the president of the United States, the leader of the free world, as Secretary Mark Rutte puts it. America is the leader of the free world. There is no doubt about it, Anita Anand. And you're disrespectful all the time to that. And those birds told you that. Those birds, they should travel. Those birds should travel with Jolie, Champagne, and Anita Anand. They should bring those birds with them all the time. Whenever they speak, they let the birds out of the cage. But here's a clip here from Harris, Biden, and Trump on Iran.
What's the message to Iran?
Don't.
Mr. President, to Iran in this moment.
Don't.
I'm going to bomb the shit out of them. It's true. I don't care. I don't care.
What was he actually talking about? That was that actually about Iran?
He did. I remember watching that clip. But Kamala Harris, I don't know if she knows where she's at most of the time.
No.
Joe Biden definitely didn't know where he was at. And the media covered that as well, including the CBC covered for him as well. Imagine that. The CBC covered for Joe Biden and yet goes after Trump all the time. Isn't that weird? Right from the get-go. Eh? Right from the get-go. Doesn't that tell you anything? What does that tell you? They go after Pierre Poilievre. They go after the BC Conservative Party. They go after Danielle Smith like dogs on a bone. It doesn't even matter. Danielle Smith could literally cure cancer tomorrow, and she would be putting doctors out of work. Mark Carney could basically steal everything from Canada, and they would say, well, I mean, at least it's the Canadians stealing it. That would be the logic. And we get sausage rolls. Anyway, that's our show for today. If you could like, share, subscribe, consider becoming a member. You hit that join button there and you support independent media. If you could get this out to a much larger audience. How did you do that moving thing? That was pretty swift there. You're just like a magician.
Just the Desert Fox on maneuvers as usual.
You're like
we
a
need to send in Monty to thwart him.
Not bad for a low IQ guy. You can actually move yourself around like that.
Just with telekinesis.
You're like that guy off X-Men. We're back tomorrow at 9 a.m. And we're also back at noon today, PST, with the food professor, probably one of the smartest guys in food here. And food, so tough in Canada for right now. I hear from so many people right now going without. And Rigged Outcome says he's here for your low IQ. Attaboy.
Cat in the Hat says he shares this show on Grindr.
On what? I don't even know what that is.
The game, I don't know how you would describe it. Like Tinder. It's like the gay version of Tinder.
There you go. When you stop buying food, you can pay some bills. Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrific. And the sad thing is, it's squandered. It's policy. It's literally policy. It's not Donald Trump. It's our own stupidity. Literally, we showed you last week the elbows down, right? The elbows down. We've got the graph way down there of how we shipped LNG. I was talking about that to my resource buddy, and he couldn't believe it. He said, like, this is absolutely ridiculous. Do we have the graph way down there? Desert Fox, if you go down there, it's down there at the bottom there of the shipping of the natural gas. Again, with the globe, just for people at the end here, it's like from here, this country right here. Yeah, it's better on that one there.
You want me to do it?
Yeah, you do it.
Oh, we want India. Should we find India?
Yeah, India too.
Okay.
There's India. Yeah, I see India. Yeah.
There's
Right.
India.
Yeah.
Where are we going to go?
We're gonna go other way. I think go east.
Okay, we're going to go the European way. Or the,
Yeah, all the way around Africa there, right? Or you can go through the Suez Canal.
And there we go.
Yeah, and then we're gonna.
But then we
ship
can't
there.
really be putting it there. It's gonna have to go Panama Canal. How many canals? We're gonna need a canal subscription.
There's the one that we got from Australia. So Australia, all the way around South America. At least you know one thing we're gonna learn in Canada is maybe our population will learn geography more than most Americans. We'll be more because we'll do it through our. This is where we buy our LNG from. We can actually buy New Zealand beef, and that's from right there, beside there too, right beside Australia is New Zealand. We can actually buy our beef there cheaper than we can buy our beef here.
Yeah. Moana's coming to collect it and on her raft, and she's taking it back, and it's still cheap.
Love the globe. This is a big prop. This is like our budget is like this, right? We both have a globe.
We should stick them to our heads or something. So we've always got a globe.
The
And
globe.
we can
The
teach
globe.
geography.
Globe Masters. Anyway, the really big show.ca, can you put that link up there if you want to make a contribution or see all the other channels we're on? Need More IQ should be on a t-shirt. Yeah, that's we got it. We're going to get our merchandise going too. Sausage rolls. Need More IQ. That'll be another good one. This show is only for low IQ individuals. Proud to be.
No business case alert. That needs
What?
to be.
They did
that needs
say,
to be a t-shirt, doesn't it?
so just to carry on, they called you low IQ, and they also called me what, a small town idiot or something like that. What was it? They
Oh,
small
they call
town
us
hack or
Hack.
hick. Small
Hack, not
town
hick.
hack. Yeah. So
Yeah.
there you go. So small town hack and a low IQ guy. That's what you're watching, or you'd rather watch the Laurentian elite, Rosie Barton and David Cochrane, tell you how to feel and think, and that you're not hungry. You're just supporting climate change. I don't know. Anyway, that's it. See you in 36 minutes with the Food Professor. Should be a good show. We had Franco on Friday. Lots of segments we cut up too, because we cut the show up into smaller segments, small bite-sized segments, so that you can eat them slower. Anyway, cheers. See you at noon, and see the rest of you at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, Tuesday. Every weekday, 9 a.m. PST. Thank you for watching Now Media.